I know it's a big investment.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a big investment, but this does pay back.
Yeah.
Look at markets like India. These are rapidly expanding economies.
When it comes to selecting a university, obviously there are so many factors, again, within a single country. Firstly, how important are league table rankings?
Yeah.
And secondly, what other factors should students be taking into account when they're making that decision?
And when you're making such a huge decision about, your future, and it's also, huge financially, you really want to know that the counsellor you're talking to, the organisation you're working with, has your best interests at heart. And those are things that, we focus on intensely as an organisation, to make sure that every student is looked after, every student gets the right advice.
Good morning to all our viewers. Welcome to today's edition of Education Keeping It Real, the podcast about global education and careers, brought to you by Youth United Council of India. I'm your host, Lotty Hill, Director of International Partnerships, and I am absolutely delighted to be here in central London today at the headquarters of a world-leading higher education specialist, StudyIn, and I am joined by the CEO, Rob Grimshaw. So thank you so much for joining us, Rob.
Thank you, Lottie, and great to have you here at our offices here in London.
Thank you. Yeah, we are going to be bringing you a conversation all about studying abroad and opportunities wherever you want to study in the world. StudyIn has lots of offices across the world, partners in most of the continents. So we're going to start off with a question about unlocking the door to success, because I've seen on your website that StudyIn's mission states, and I'll quote, is to set the standard in higher education consultancy, unlocking the door to success for all our community. So, Rob, in your opinion, how does an international education unlock that door to success?
It's a really good question, Lottie. I think international education is a really special thing. The opportunity to go and immerse yourself in the culture of another country, to be on a campus with young people from many parts of the world, finding out about their perspectives, their cultures, even as you're learning yourself through the course. It's a very special experience, and it equips people, to my mind, to be a bridge between cultures. And that's something that can be important in business, can be important in government, can be important in all sorts of aspects of how societies work. The world needs these people that can connect and translate between cultures. I think it's something that helps the world move past its problems through collaboration and conversation rather than through conflict, and that that has to be a fundamentally good thing. I'm delighted that StudyIn is a business that's at the heart of that. I mean, we do a very simple but important thing, which is connecting great students across the globe. We're present in 45 different markets. To amazing universities across numerous different destination markets. And in putting them together, I sort of like to think that we're making the world a better place, right?
Absolutely.
If we have a sort of higher purpose or calling, then maybe that's it. But I do know fundamentally that for the young people we work with, and open the door to higher education opportunities overseas, has a transformational effect on their lives. And it's something that they will benefit from for years and years to come. That's from our point of view, it's a great reason to get out of bed in the morning.
Absolutely. So obviously, if students are thinking about this, if they're at the starting point of that journey, one of the core questions will be, where in the world should I study? As I understand it, StudyIn has university partners in, is it 7 locations?
Actually more, but those 7 are our kind of primary focuses. The business started working with universities in the UK, but we're now working with universities across Australia, in Canada, in the US, in New Zealand, in Ireland, in Dubai. And we see no reason why it should stop there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually, I think the picture in terms of destinations is a particularly interesting one at the moment, because students are becoming more open-minded about where they might study, and also the number of viable quality options is expanding for them, which is amazing.
Yeah. So what are the kind of core considerations that students should be making? What questions should they be asking about destinations? What kind of things should they be looking at when they're that first stage and looking at that question particularly?
It's a really complicated picture for students, and there are a number of different considerations. I think you can break them down into a bucket of kind of practical considerations, and then a set of more kind of personal aspirational considerations. In terms of the practical considerations, one of the biggest factors will be cost. Students, unless they're very fortunate, are not able to access like infinite resources. So they're going to have to tailor their overseas study plans around what they can afford. And across destinations, there's a spectrum. And they need to be looking at destinations which will fit their wallet. The second thing is, from a practical point of view, is visa and access. You need to be able to get into the country where you want to study, actually there's a lot of complexity around that area, and students need to go into that with open eyes. What are the countries I'm actually going to be able to access? And then there's the practicalities around qualifications and educational credentials. Am I going to be able to get accepted in an institution in this destination? On the more sort of personal aspirational side are the factors that will influence the experience that they're going to have. The culture of the destination market, the local language, the mix of students who will be on the campuses, and of course, the academic opportunities. What courses can I study? What about the institutions I might be at? The prestige that they have, the rankings, etc. There are a lot of things to think about, and I think actually one of the reasons why businesses like StudyIn exist is because it's actually quite hard. As a young person looking at all of the different options to pick through that and say, well, what's going to be best for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's so many things you can look at online now, but actually then having to kind of translate that for yourself is probably quite a difficult feat, really.
I think it's quite overwhelming.
I'd say so.
I know lots of students spend hours and hours researching individually via all the tools that are available on the web. Whether that's search tools, AI tools, etc. And very often when we first speak to them, they're not short of information. In fact, they're almost drowning in it. But what they're lacking is a way to actually pick their way through that and make the right choices, and also properly understand the process. All the many steps involved between the dream and actually enrolling to university.
That's a great point. As we mentioned, you did talk about cost there and people's wallets. So I wanted to ask a question about this. If a student is concerned about the cost of studying abroad, could you tell us a little bit about, from your experience, what kinds of financial support might be available to students who would like to have an education overseas?
Yes, there are quite a lot of places to go. There are many well-established scholarship schemes. Particularly if you're a high-flying student, then programs like the Chevening Scholars, Commonwealth Scholarships, the British Council run their own scholarship schemes, and these are always worth looking at, and that there are a host of foundations and organizations, often specific to individual source markets, that will support aspiring students, particularly those that are very talented and doing well in their studies. Outside of that, institutions also make a lot available. Many of the universities that we work with will offer scholarships as a matter of course, and many will do specific scholarship offers in an individual year for one reason or another. Students should always look at what individual institutions might offer. In that regard, some of those things can be very generous. Individual universities will also sometimes offer benefits around things like accommodation. And this is important because actually the tuition fees are only a part of the cost of studying overseas. You've got to find accommodation for yourself. You need to be able to support yourself whilst you're overseas. So there's a number of places to go, and students should check out every option. I mean, our website has a lot of stuff on scholarships. In addition to that, of course, there is the provision of funding from loan providers and things. And in many of the source markets around the world, there are specialist companies who work to provide education loans to students. Those offerings are kind of tuned to the needs of individual students. They're companies that understand that students are not necessarily going to be in a position to pay back until they finish their studies and then they're into employment. It doesn't all have to be in your bank account at the start of the process.
That's good to know. So the headline cost is not necessarily what people will end up paying. But one of the other related issues to the cost, because it is sometimes a very big sacrifice for families as well, is what kind of return on investment can students expect? Because I'm sure that's what a lot of parents are asking. We're putting a lot into this. What are you going to get back from it? So I'd like to ask your thoughts on that.
Yes. And look, I think students and their families are asking this more and more at the moment. And that's, for a combination of reasons. I mean, actually, to be honest, there's been quite aggressive inflation in tuition fees over time. And just in the past couple of years, there have been movements in currencies that have, increased the hurdle, shall we say, from a cost point of view. The rupee has weakened against the pound in India. The naira in Nigeria has weakened. Even the Japanese yen has weakened. So that does cause students and families to say, well, hang on a minute. This is going to cost us a lot of money. Am I going to get a return on this? All the evidence says the answer is yes. There are many studies on this, and what they show is that students who have made the investment and acquired a qualification overseas, when it comes to employment, they will go into roles at a more senior level. They will find those roles more quickly than their peers who've just studied locally, and they will earn more, both at the start of their career and over the complete arc of their career. That benefit can be enormous over the space of a career, potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars additional income over the span of a career versus someone that didn't go overseas to study. Look, when you talk to employers, one of the things that they say is, we really value these individuals that can think outside the boundaries of their own market, that have seen other parts of the world, that can connect with people from other marketplaces. So much of business is international. So many of the best opportunities are not in your local market, but overseas. So of course, people who studied overseas are attracted to employers. So I would say to any student or any family, I know it's a big investment. Of course, it's a big investment, but this does pay back. And particularly if you're able to get into, some of the great institutions which are available around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly that, there are those students who will go to work in their host country, but there are also students who will return to their own country. And certainly in India, it's the opportunities are massive. So even if those students end up coming back to India, there's so many global companies. India is going to be the world's next great superpower economically as well. So absolutely, an international education will benefit them massively, I'm sure, if they decide to do that.
Oh, completely. And look, the opportunities, as you say, are available both in the country of study and in the home country. And some of the opportunities in the home countries are increasingly attractive. I mean, when you look at markets like India, these are rapidly expanding economies. That economic energy is creating a lot of opportunities for students who have the right skills. And I think that there's always a debate around overseas education and immigration. And of course, a lot of students do aspire. They want to go overseas and study at a great institution. And one of the things on their mind is, would I be able to stay? If I go to the US, would I be able to stay in the US, build a career there? Same with the UK, same with Australia. And you can understand why that's an aspiration. But actually, I think for many students, it's an increasingly even call about whether it's best to stay in the country where you studied or whether it's best to go back home, because in these fast moving developing markets, there's a lot of excitement, a lot of opportunity.
Absolutely.
So if you get that qualification, it opens the door to a lot of potential, very exciting things.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to kind of drill down a bit. So if a student has made the decision they would like to study abroad, they know which country they're going for. When it comes to selecting a university, obviously there are so many factors, again, within a single country. There is, in the UK, for example, we're looking at over 100 institutions, I think. Firstly, how important are league table rankings? And secondly, what other factors should students be taking into account when they're making that decision?
There are a lot of choices. Actually, we work with 170 odd higher education institutions just in the UK. So it's bewildering, and those institutions are offering, I think, about 70,000 different courses. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is like a forest. I would be lying if I said rankings didn't matter. Prestige always has some influence when it comes to education choices. And parents want the best for their child, and talented students want the best credentials when they finish their education. So students do look at the rankings, and I think actually the rankings can give you some really interesting insights into the quality of the education that's available. Many students quickly find that within the context of the rankings, there's a band that they're going to play in. Their own education credentials are suitable for a particular band of universities, and then I think actually the more important choices are within that band. And firstly, it's about fit with what you aspire to study. As I mentioned, 70,000 odd courses. Most students have a fairly clear idea of what they want to study, but many struggle to make the choice between the different varieties of course available within a particular subject. A subject like biology will break down into tens or hundreds of different potential courses. Students need to zero in on the flavor of course which is going to be best suited to their aspirations, and then they need to look at fit with the institution. Where am I going to enjoy myself? Where am I going to find a like-minded community that I feel comfortable in? And that's an area, I mean, it's intangible, and it's an area where the guidance of a good counsellor can be really critical, because an experienced counsellor will have worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of students over time, and they will know which institutions suit particular characters, particular personalities, could help steer students in the right direction, and make sense of these kind of bewildering choices, you know.
Yeah, sounds like it's quite a, you know, an individual sort of fit, as you say. And you know, so what I wanted to ask next was, if a student is interested in working with a counselling service, education consultancy such as StudyIn, what kind of level of support can they expect from when they start that journey through to, you know, potential enrolment? You know, what's the journey with the service?
It's an extended journey, because there are many steps involved, and we aim to work with students right through all the different steps that they'll need to go through in order to enrol at their dream institution. We often will talk to students initially when they're 2 years plus out from actually going to study overseas, and they're just beginning to form their ideas about what they might do. From those early conversations, often students then engage with us through the student fairs that we run. I mean, we run hundreds of these events around the globe, and they're great opportunities for students to meet a mix of universities and also speak to counsellors, and start to shape their ideas more clearly about you know, what's going to suit me, what courses, what institutions are going to work for me as an individual. Once students have a clearer idea and they're, you know, maybe 12 months out, then we'll start working with them seriously on course selection and application. And some of the aspects of that are complicated, and you know, many students struggle, for example, with their personal statements. You know, how do I explain why I want to do this course and why I want to be at this institution? So we'll help them with aspects like that. We'll make sure that all of the administration is done correctly. And post-application, we're then working with them to make the choice between the offers that they receive. You know, that actually can be a tricky moment for students. I've got two great offers here. Which, you know, which institution am I going to go to?
Good position to be in, though.
And then, you know, once the student is locked in on, I like this offer, I like this institution, I'm going to go and study here. There's a series of things that then follow. You know, they've got to pay deposits, they've got to get their CAS back, they've got to apply for their visa, they've got to figure out the logistics around transport, they've got to find accommodation. And in that period of time, our counsellors are working in step with the students to help them get over all these hurdles so that they can eventually get on the plane and head off overseas. We also work to try and connect them with a community before they go overseas. You know, one of the last steps in the process is holding pre-departure gatherings where, you know, we'll get together students from the area around our location, wherever that might be, and connect them with other students from that area that are going overseas. And you know, that's always a nice moment.
That's a great way to.
They're just on the threshold, you know.
Brilliant. So they actually have a little community before they arrive, and a network they can call on.
Absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
That's great. So I just wanted to finish really, because we've talked about all the fundamental decisions and, you know, what students can expect. But there are, you know, one of the things I think people will be asking is that there is so much choice also in the industry of study abroad counselling. So many organisations seemingly offering similar services. So I'm here at StudyIn HQ, and I'd really like you to tell us what the differences that you see with your organisation, what you can bring to students that will
Yes.
really be beneficial for them?
Yeah, so there is a lot of choice, right? I mean, there are some estimates of about 22,000 different intermediaries, agencies across the globe. So it's a forest, right? But students need to be careful and understand that these intermediaries are not all the same by any means. I think there's a number of different things that students should look at. Firstly, what's the nature of the relationship that an intermediary has with the institutions? We work directly with hundreds of institutions, and the access that we have and the expertise that we've built up through that is something that the students can plug directly into. Many of the intermediaries or agents that students might speak to in the market barely have any contact with the universities at all. And therefore, they're not really in a position to have the depth of knowledge and expertise that students need to access in order to get the right advice and guidance. The second thing students should look at is the values of the agents that they're working with. StudyIn was founded 18 years ago in Japan, and subsequently we've spread all over the world. I mean, we're present in 45 different markets. And as we've grown, we've had some core values that go right back to the founding of the organization. Japan is actually a tough market to work in because students in Japan are very, very demanding. You cannot do anything wrong. Mistakes will not be tolerated. So from our very earliest days as an organization, one of our core values was you have to do the right thing by both the student and the institution. You have to go the extra mile to make sure that they get the right advice and guidance. And that is still there at the core of the company, in our culture, in every location that we operate in. And it means that when students come to us, they know that the counsellor across the table is going to give them unbiased, straightforward, clear advice, which they can trust and rely on. And when you're making such a huge decision about your future, and it's also huge financially, you really want to know that the counsellor you're talking to, the organisation you're working with, has your best interests at heart. So that's what students should think about, and those are things that we focus on intensely as an organisation, to make sure that every student is looked after, every student gets the right advice, and also that we do the right thing by the many wonderful institutions that we work with.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you, Rob, so much for walking us through this, what could be seen as a maze by people who are just at the start of this journey. But organisations like StudyIn are really making it a lot easier for students who have this dream to study abroad. So I'm really happy that we've actually kind of been able to bring some of this journey and the steps towards unpicking it and actually finding the right fit. I'm really pleased that we've been able to bring this to our audience. So thank you so much, Rob. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Lottie. A pleasure on my part as well.
Okay.
And good luck to all the aspirant students out there.
Yeah, absolutely.